Hello everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you're well today. Today we're going to be talking about the INFJ curse. In other words, unhappiness, dissatisfaction with life, unfulfillment. The wish that we were born into a different body, into a different mind, born with a different cognitive makeup. In other words, this video is going to be about how to deal with this, not with this curse, which is a creation of our minds, but with the idea of it and how to surpass it, how to vanquish it. In other words, how to be happy. Before I move on, let me remind you that I have written a book on the INFJ type called by someone the INFJ Survival Guide, so perhaps an apt title and an apt book for this video. And the Ecstatic Soul, available for less than $10 in all the countries. All the Amazon links are provided in the description box down below. It's pretty much available everywhere, and it's in ebook and paperback format. If you have any questions, just drop me a comment and I'll be happy to answer you. It's struck me that in the recent past I've been making, a lot of videos. My activity became steady again around July, August of this year, after a certain period of lesser activity due to some professional commitments. I'm now free of these commitments, and I spent some time around the middle of the year to work on this book and to get it published. You see what happened there? This is evidence of inferior SE just for you, or absence of TE. It happens. It's just a makeshift little construction, and it's bound to disappear. It's bound to fall at some point or other. But anyway, you've seen the book, so I am happy to sort of leave it by the side. So I've made a lot of different videos on the existential constitution of the INFJ, the quality of the INFJ consciousness, trying to move beyond a pure list-like description of the inferior functions, of the cognitive functions, apologies. And that is all very well. But at times I read the comments, I read the comments all the time, but at times the comments evoke in me certain thoughts. And I cannot help but realize, and in some sense admit, that despite all the efforts that can be made at providing an intellectual context for the vicissitudes of the INFJ, a particular path of explanation for how to deal with some important challenges an INFJ is likely to face in life, the fact remains that for a lot of INFJs, being an INFJ type seems to be something a little bit painful, something that they would rather not be, in other words. I notice this because not only do I encounter these comments often, but the number of upvotes for these comments are often larger than for any other comment. So there are obviously a lot of INFJs who feel this way. And that is something that goes beyond any attempt at explaining anything intricate. It's just a pure feeling. Something that is almost like a regret, a wish that they had been another kind of person. Like I said, someone with a different kind of cognitive makeup. And this, if you want to call it the INFJ curse, like I'm calling it, I think it's a convenient way to call it. I mean, in a sense, it is a self-inflicted curse, because the philosopher Marcus Aurelius, typically considered an INFJ himself, said, the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. He also said, you have influence over your thoughts, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And I think that's what Marcus Aurelius was trying to tell us, is that anything that you experience is ultimately colored by your thoughts. And if you're able to conceive your thoughts in a constructive and positive fashion, then you might come to change your perspective on the contents of the thoughts. And so if you think about what your life is worth on INFJ, how difficult and challenging it can be, managing to shift the structure of the thoughts that have to do with this topic might help you to come to a different perspective on your life. And I think that essentially, as long as you're going to focus on all the negative aspects, all the challenging aspects of being an INFJ, without shifting your perspective, you're probably going to remain within this vicious circle of disappointment and frustration. I think that the philosophy of Taoism is one that really coincides with the way to INFJ happiness. You don't imagine, you look at the INFJs in history and you don't imagine that a great many of them were happy, but you do imagine that somewhere. You can imagine Buddha being what we would call happy. You can imagine the Prophet Muhammad being what we would call happy. You might even think of Jesus, despite his difficult circumstances, as happy, and a few others. But it's true that when you compare these to the mass of the Dostoevskys and the Hermann Hesses of this world, the Wittgenstein, admittedly, also, and many others, Schopenhauer, not least, who seemed haunted, frustrated, full of conflicting thoughts that were the source of great genius, but it's almost as if the genius was born out of a frustration with life. It's a kind of genius that was born in pain. We don't really experience that when you think about figures like the Buddha, the Prophet, Jesus, or people like that, those fair few INFJs. So it might be useful to try and think of a way to, if not emulate the lives of these people, at least really draw a great deal of inspiration from it. And like I said, Taoism, I think, is key in a way here, because Taoism is a very, very fascinating concept that I think is remarkably adapted to the style of life that can bring peace of mind and satisfaction and fulfillment to the INFJ. It's what it calls Wu Wei, usually translated as effortless action or action without action, inactive action. There's many ways of trying to capture with words this somewhat paradoxical idea. But the best metaphor for Wu Wei is this idea of being like the flow of water, moving without strife, not trying to impose things on the world, but just going with the flow in a sense, getting into the interstices of where you have to go. And it's a very difficult and abstract idea to try to convey to you, but I think that the key to INFJ wisdom and to this satisfied, existentially fulfilled vocational life is very much like this, very much like someone who follows the path of Wu Wei, someone who conceives of his existence as water. It's not in an INFJ's nature to try to force things too much. Again, remember the quote by Aurelius: you don't have influence over outside events, but only over the contents of your thoughts. Realize this, you will find strength. So it's all about self-mastery of your thoughts first. Outside events, you can rarely change them. You can definitely change your perception of them. But this idea of a kind of surrendering of the exceedingly ambitious or hubristic goals of the ego is something that is beginning to equate more and more to a free-flowing and unhindered functioning of the NI-dominant function. To be dissatisfied, to complain to oneself or to the world at the fact that NI is not compatible with the current demands of our world, especially when it's not supported by TE to compensate for that lack of fit, is in a sense to set oneself against the world, to wish the world were different. Now, Wu Wei, and also Marcus Aurelius' words, suggest that it's not so much about trying to change the world or trying to paint a picture of the world as dark and opposed to what we represent and what we are constituted by in our very bone marrow. Wu Wei is more a sense of saying to hold sway on one's feet and to go wherever our intuitions guide us without letting ourselves feel too much of the Effie-induced pressure of having to fit. Because Effie, after all, is there to support NI. It's not that NI is there to support Effie. Society might want to make us believe that we ought to use Effie with NI as its support. In other words, always learn new ways of harmonizing with others, but in this way we sacrifice what we have to bring to the table in the most primordial sense. So even if we might be made to feel this way by society and by what we learn around us, the key is probably to always look toward intuition, always look toward NI, and not to think that by doing this we're sacrificing Effie. Effie as a support to NI is really not the same thing as NI as a support to Effie. When you stand by your intuitions and approach others in a collaborative spirit and open up to them, manifest your interest in knowing what they think about your intuitions and sharing your intuitions about their own intuitions, you're already using Effie, and you're already using probably the best use of Effie you can make. A use of Effie that is never coming at the expense of your own singularity, but allowing you to conserve your singularity, but to allow it to shine onto others in the way that is most excellently practiced by the INFJ type. Inspiring others rather than feeling stuck into the need for harmonizing with others. In inspiration, there is harmony, but the harmony cannot come before the inspiration. So the question is really, can you practice Wu Wei or something analogous to that? Can you stand for your beliefs, stand for your intuitions, and be ready to engage other people with this knowledge and this level of certainty? I think this is probably the key to battling and eventually winning against the curse of the INFJ. But I would love to hear what you have to think. So please drop a comment. And if you want to give a like to the video and subscribe, I certainly will not complain. I'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye-bye.